Good morning.
Hey guys, Justin with Backyard Bushcraft. Happy Thanksgiving. So this weekend I read an article online. Unfortunately, a young lady up in New Hampshire went hiking in the White Mountains. She was not prepared for the type of weather that she encountered. Today's hike, the whole point is to come out and to show how to prepare ourselves if we ever get stuck in the woods for an overnight, unexpected sleepover, so to speak. This young lady up in New Hampshire, although she's an experienced hiker, wasn't really dressed properly for the type of conditions that she encountered, like I said earlier. She ran into single-digit weather this time of year in the White Mountains. I've never been there, but I hear the conditions can be quite treacherous. Like I always say, you're not going to get eaten by an animal. You're most likely going to succumb to the elements you're exposed to, and that's exactly what happened to this young lady, unfortunately. Number one and foremost, I knew exactly what I was doing today, and I prepared for the situation. I dressed appropriately for the conditions that I expect to meet. The second most important thing I did, which everyone should do regardless of how close you are to your home or not, when you go on a day hike, an overnight hike, camping, whatever the case is, you tell somebody what you're doing. I told my wife, hey, going around the corner and I'm going to be in the woods messing around today and I should be home in a few hours. If she doesn't hear from me, she'll obviously know where to come get me. I'm not far from any type of residential area or a main road, but she at least knows where I am and she expects me home at a certain time. So 2 things you must do when you are planning a day hike: dress appropriately and obviously tell somebody what you're planning. The gear that I brought with me today, because of what I knew I was going to be doing, we're going to be building a debris shelter. Every bushcrafter should know how to build a shelter, not just with tarps and with ridge lines and hammocks, but they should know how to build a shelter with the material that's laying around them. This is a survival type situation shelter. You're not supposed to be comfortable. You're not supposed to enjoy yourself. This is, oh crap, I ran out of time. The sun is setting. I ran off the trail a little bit. I'm a little lost. I'm going to set myself up in a shelter that is going to keep me warm enough to survive the night so I can get up in the morning and find my way back to where I have to go to if somebody hasn't found me by that. So on any hike that I go on, I always bring my axe, all right? And I always keep my sheath on it, because the last thing you want is to be walking around the woods, trip, fall, and gash yourself open and find yourself in an even worse situation than just being lost off the trail that you're walking. In my haversack, I have what I think is probably one of the most important things that you can bring, especially if it's just a day hike. You're gonna wanna bring some type of hydration. So here I have my water. I have it in a container that I know that if I need to get more water, I can warm it up over a fire to sterilize it, and it will keep it somewhat cold for me throughout the day. Okay, again, because I knew we were going to be doing a shelter today, I brought some gloves. Normally, I won't bring gloves with me, but especially after reading this article this weekend, it's something I'm going to start to include on my everyday carry when I go into the woods and when I go hiking, because again, as prepared or as experienced as you think you may be, you never know what kind of situations that you're going to run into. So this is something that I'm going to continue to carry and start carrying on the regular. So a nice pair of gloves. I brought myself a headlamp. It is good to have yourself a headlamp just in case you find yourself in case you find the time winding down, it starts getting dark out, a good source of light to help you not trip over things. And like I said, it's a day hike. I wasn't too concerned about food. I brought my water, but as a snack, just to keep myself satisfied, I have a Cliff Bar and I have some beef jerky. Again, nothing crazy, nothing too heavy, just something to help me get through the day. And if, God forbid, I was out somewhere in the woods where I wasn't so close to home and I needed to munch on something to keep me held over to the day, the next day, I have something with me. I have some bank line. I always carry some bank line. This is number 18 bank line. This is really great stuff if you need to build a ridge line or if you need to lash some things together. Again, I wasn't really sure besides the shelter what I was going to be doing today, but I always like to carry this with me in case something does happen to come up where I want a project just to work on right away. When it has something to do with lashing or tying knots or something, this is really great stuff to have. As usual, I always carry this with me, is my Bajo saw. I keep this thing in my haversack all the time. I love this tool. Helps me cut what I need to cut. And again, I knew I was going to be building a shelter today, so I wasn't sure if I was going to be in an area that I needed to cut wood or if I was just going to utilize some of the dead wood around me and build from there. So I have this just in case I need to cut some wood. I have a sharpening stone. All right, this was something I never used to carry with me, but you could at least maintain some of your edges on your cutting devices, like my axe or like a knife that I have. I have my knife with me always, and this knife in my sheath is a ferrocerium rod. So I have a way to create sparks if I need to make a fire. Okay, that's one source of ignition. Second, I have another Bic lighter. Okay, this is in an Exotech waterproof container just in case it falls or it gets exposed. This is a fire kit, like a fiber light kit. This material in here is a great source of tinder. It is super flammable, takes to a spark. You can see that. The camera won't focus. There you go. All right, so very flammable, takes to a spark of a ferrocerium rod, burns for a long time. I also have a piece of fat wood, and this obviously I'm going to have a video for this very soon on how to harvest this, how to find it. It's Mother Nature's natural fire starter. That was for you, Johnny. Always practicing my flint and steel technique. I have my char cloth. If you haven't seen my char cloth video, I'll try to put a link up here in the video or in the description. Check it out. Very easy to make. I knew that this was going to be a damp day. I knew it was going to rain on and off today. My material in the woods was most likely going to be difficult to start a fire with. So that's why I have so many different sources of ignition with me. I wanted to try to make it as easy as possible, but also to screw around a little bit with the flint and steel. I'm not really proficient in using that yet, so it's something good to practice with. Okay, so you've been hiking all day. You're tired. You've maybe wandered off the trail a little bit, and you realize the sun is starting to set. You're not going to make it back in time, or you may be a little lost and you start to freak out. You're getting a little nervous, and you start to realize that getting home today is not a possibility. The last thing you want to do is panic. You want to sit down, kind of assess your situation, look around you, observe, and come up with a game plan. What I'm doing right now is I'm just looking around my area that I'm in. I have a lot of material, dead standing trees, a lot of fallen trees on the ground, and I'm looking to find something that can start my shelter for me. In my area, I found 2 pieces of wood that are going to work great, and I'm going to start with a Y-shaped piece of wood and a Y-shaped piece of wood. Interlock these 2 bad boys like this. That is going to be my entrance and exit, and here is my ridge line for my support. So that's it, and that is where I will be getting in and out. I have everything interlocked here. It's pretty sturdy as far as it's not going to fall on me in the middle of the night. And I used, like I said, this log back here just to give me a little bit more room between the ground and where this so-called roof is going to be. There's no rhyme or reason to this. You're just gonna make something that you're gonna be able to throw your debris on. Cool little fact here, a debris shelter, believe it or not, one of the warmest survival shelters you can make. If you ever notice, when you're looking at a squirrel's nest up in the trees, right, or a bird's nest up in the trees, that's all this is. It's just a bunch of material wrapped around itself, very tight quarters, and these animals snuggle up inside there and keep themselves warm. Now, something I want you to keep in mind, this is not something that's going to take you 20 minutes to build. This could take you upwards of an hour to 2 hours, depending on what kind of material you have around you. If you do decide that, hey, I'm not going to make it out of the woods, or you know what, it's getting kind of late and I have a few hours left of daylight, you may want to start to build your shelter then, instead of waiting to the absolute last minute and really being stuck in the dark and not being able to locate your resources around you. I pretty much have it to where I want. I have all the ribs in place. Like I said, all I did was locate as many as the dead standing trees as I could. Here's the inside look, and that is where you will stay for the night. So again, guys, this is not really supposed to be for comfort. I'm going to say it over and over and over. You found yourself, unfortunately, like this young lady did up in New Hampshire, climate change, unprepared clothing wise, and you need to make it through the night. Exposure to the elements, that is always going to be what you succumb to in this type of situation. So I'm going to start throwing some debris on this. Rule of thumb, it all depends on the temperature when it comes to how much insulation you want. If it's going to drop below 30 degrees, you really want your insulation to be armpit deep before you touch those ribs on your shelter. Some of the things you want to keep in mind if you find yourself in this type of situation, when making your shelter or deciding on a spot you're going to make your shelter. Like I said, sit down and don't panic. When you assess your situation, make sure the material that you're going to be tramping back and forth isn't far from your location. I happen to be very fortunate. I found a spot that has a lot of the material I need. All right, guys, there you have it, the debris shelter. So again, as you see, when we first started, the rain was coming, or here, it was a little chilly, the sun was behind the clouds, and here we are now, it's dry, sun is shining, the temperature has changed dramatically. So those are things to take into consideration. If you do find yourself on a day hike and you find yourself lost, maybe you've walked off trail, you've gotten a little behind your schedule, and you find that you need to spend the night in the woods, and you're really not prepared to make a significant shelter. The debris shelter is very, very warm, very, very claustrophobic, and for survival only. It is not built for comfort. This will get you through the night so you can get up and get yourself back on your trail and back home where you're safe and sound. So unfortunately, the story that we heard this morning about this young lady up in New Hampshire getting lost and succumbing to the elements is tragic, but it's a huge learning experience. My condolences to that family. It's never a phone call that you want to receive as a parent, but the best thing we can do is practice our skills and really make sure that we are prepared for any situation that we could possibly come across. And that's what today's video was about. It teaches us, no matter how prepared we think we are, Mother Nature will always win the battle if you're not prepared for her. So I hope you learned something today. I hope you could take this with you. I hope that you never find yourself in a situation where you're lost in the woods, off the trail, and you need to spend the night alone. It's very intimidating. But if you're prepared and you know how to utilize the materials you have around you, you can make for a chance to get through the night and to get home the next day. Also, a book I recommend you check out is Shelter Shacks and Shanties by DC Beard. This is a great book, loaded with information. It's got a lot of graphics inside, and it'll get you through building some pretty cool shelters, something like this, like the debris shelter that we built today, and some more elaborate shelters as well. So check that out. Check out my my Instagram page as well, Backyard Bushcraft. There's a book out there, Bushcraft 101 by Dave Canterbury from the Pathfinder School of Survival. Awesome book. You'll find a lot of useful and helpful tips and knowledge in that book as well. As always, this is not a, I'm not paid sponsor. I don't get any perks for mentioning these books or these people. They are pioneers when it comes to bushcraft. I've learned an enormous amount of information from them. You should check out their channels as well on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook or whatever else you're on. So if you liked what you saw, obviously hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, check out my other videos as well, especially for the char cloth, so you can bring that with you and include it into your fire kit. And if you want to see some more videos and you want to know when I make videos, ring that bell so you're notified every time I do. Again, I appreciate you checking me out. This is Justin from Backyard Bushcraft, signing out.